but it translates to their personal lives as well. When you the Malcolm X speech that I keep playing on the panel about who taught you to hate your hair, your nose, that really applies. Um, People are conditioned. Oh, records recorded. Okay, yeah. People are conditioned in America, and I'm specifically talking about a certain demographic, as in Africa, as even in Haiti, who hate themselves. White supremacy is the greatest cancer and disease in the history of mankind. And it comes through the Bible, the Quran, the images on TV, you name it, bro. Which is why I hate the Bible and I 100% hate the Quran. Um, so yeah, shout out to you for taking your time and effort to show maps and stuff like that. I would have just been cursing people out. So clearly, for the person in the comments talking about morals, clearly he has a higher moral ground than I do, and I'm good with that. Bottom line is this: someone has to be morally nice and cool, another one has to want to choke you to death, and I prefer to want to choke you to death because there's no way in hell that in 2025 that you could literally hate yourself to that point where you're calling yourself a fucking Israelite, a Moor, a Muslim, and all this other bullshit, and also denying the people that look like you. Like I said, they just had a panel where they were calling Africans Hamites and making fun of their food, talking about fufu whatever and bushmeat and jungle this and that. These are
Yes.
black people talking about other black people. So no, they're not going to hate the Europeans to respond to the comments you made. They're going to hate themselves because they want to be European. 100% wish they could be European. Like I said, take a look at Latin America, specifically Argentina, Dominican Republic. Those people are anti-black, 100%. And they're way worse than the people in Vigo. I guess people in Vigo just sit around each other. But I promise you, when you travel, you realize just how horrible and how anti-black these people are. Hold on, my food just came. Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah. And just to recap, right? We have been talking about African origins, early migrations of humans, early human genetics, right? And when we're talking about early human genetics, mitochondrial Eve comes to mind, right? The earliest genetically traceable human ancestor of all humankind, right? The mitochondrial Eve is labeled the L haplogroup, right? So when we're talking about the earliest traceable human populations, as far as mitochondrial DNA, it is labeled the L haplogroup, right? So to start this conversation, then it serves us to start with the L haplogroup. And most subclades of the L haplogroup, like L0, L1, L2, migrate through various portions of Africa. But to talk about African origins of the human species and the out of Africa migration, it's important to focus on the L3 haplogroup specifically, not L0, not L1, not L2, but it is L3 that largely takes us out of Africa and to the rest of the world here, right? And the L3 haplogroup, right, migrates through southern Arabia, right, up into Iraq, around the coast of India, right? The coast of East Asia, and then down through Indonesia towards Aboriginal Australia, right? So when we talk about these southern hemispheres largely populated by this L3 haplogroup, and we can see, right, taking us through the Middle East, it curves up into what is Iraq, right? Takes us around the Indian subcontinent, right? Down through East Asia, Vietnam, Thailand, Cambodia is all down here, Indonesia, straight towards Australia, right? But then you have the E haplogroup, right? That's associated with Semitic speakers, but it's also one of the largest haplogroups found in Africa, right? And we can see the territories that the E haplogroup expands to, right? Over here in the Levant, southern Turkey, right? The Greek islands, Macedonia, Bulgaria, right? Over through all the way over to Germany, and France, right? Italy, I forgot exactly where these regions are. I can't make out the borders, so it slips my mind right now, unfortunately. If anyone wants to throw the names of these countries in here, you can. But you get the gist of what I'm saying, right? Over into Spain. Right? And like I was saying, when they talk about agriculture and the beginnings of agriculture starting here in the Levant with the Natufian peoples, it is these Natufians coming out of Africa who bring the E haplogroup into the Levant. It is these Natufians coming out of Africa that bring the Proto-Semitic language with them into the Levant. And it is these Natufians who develop agriculture. Thus, it's spreading to the rest of the world. But they never tell you that these Natufians who invented agriculture were straight out of Africa, not straight out of Compton. They were straight out of Africa, right? And the only other human population to independently develop agriculture aside from the Natufians are from the Natufian ancestral homeland anyway. So you can see it is one African family that brought agriculture to the world, right? Once as the Natufians in the Levant and once in their ancestral home of Central North Africa. These things are important, right? It's important to get these messages out there because they try to use terms like Natufian, right? Like Neolithic hunter-gatherer, to hide the fact that these peoples are from Africa. When we talk about the earliest populations to migrate to Europe, right? The Aurignacian culture, represented here, right? Aurignacian territory, right? Through northern Spain, through France, up through Germany, connecting over to those countries whose names slip my mind right now. Right? When they analyze the haplogroups of these individuals, they find that the haplogroups found in the Aurignacian culture, the earliest culture of Europe, right? They are of the M and C haplogroup. The M haplogroup are associated with the Black Dravidians of India, and the C haplogroup is associated with the Black Melanesians of Aboriginal Australia. And it's funny, in the book Ancient and Modern Britons, right, by David McRitchie, he mentions that the early structures of Europe are identical or synonymous with Melanesian structures, structures you find in Tasmania. So you can see not only genetic correlation, but also cultural correlation and affinity between the early populations of Europe and the Melanesian populations of Aboriginal Australia. And it's funny, we talk about these peoples of Aboriginal Australia, these Melanesians, these Black folks, because it is this same group of peoples who then migrate to the Americas. But let's rewind a little bit back to this this L3 haplogroup, right? Because I just mentioned that the Aurignacian culture are of the M haplogroup, and that's representative of Black peoples of India, right? The M haplogroup. You find the M haplogroup amongst the Aurignacian of Europe, who are Europe's earliest cultural inhabitants, right? But to get to the M haplogroup, that diverges off of the L3, right? But what changes the L3 haplogroup into M, into N, into R, right? Into U?
You know,
What
it's really
causes
funny
this
how you
genetic
guys sit
change?
here and listen to BIGO instructors who are not certified, no teachers at all in real life. Like, you never even like took a test.
That part,
Stupid ass
right?
bitch.
Thank
He's
you.
about
I
to
want to
come back
bring,
like 5 more times.
yeah, which is unfortunate. If anyone could come up and fill up these boxes so trolls don't have a place to stay, that would be beneficial, even if
100%,
you
brother.
don't contribute. We need people up here so
100% good.
trolls don't come.
Yeah.
Yeah.
100%
Osaru, peace,
good in
brother.
the comments was saying how
Osaru, peace, God.
he's spitting lies. So I'm glad he's up here. People
So
did migrate
when
from
we
those places you talk about. Right,
when
continue, my bad.
when no doubt, brother, when we talk about right how the L3 becomes these various different subclades, right? How you get the M haplogroup from the L3. What I want to bring to our attention is what is known as the Neanderthal ancestry fraction, right? Right here. This is a chart of the Neanderthal ancestry in human beings. And I want to highlight when you see all of this yellow here in Africa, right? What does that yellow represent? Zero admixture, right? So we see here in Africa, you get zero admixture with Neanderthals, Homo neanderthalis. And when you see little populations like this in blue up here in North Africa, it's due to back migration of peoples who left Africa, intermixed with Neanderthals, then came back into Africa, which we know North Africa is associated with Visigothic conquest, Arab conquest, all types of non-African conquest. So we would expect to see some Neanderthal admixture here in the non-African populations, right? But when you leave out of Africa, you can see the Homo sapien African population mixed all over the planet, right? All over the planet with Neanderthals. These are all places where Homo sapiens and Neanderthals mixed. So these circles represent interracial relationships between Homo sapiens and Neanderthals, right? But what I want to point out, if we notice, you can see clusters, right, of admixture, clusters here, clusters here, clusters here, right? And it is in these exact clusters of hybridization between Homo sapien and Neanderthals, these exact places in Iraq, the Indus Valley, and East Asia. It's those exact areas where that clustering hybridization happened, where you get haplogroup explosions, major genetic diversity in the human species. So we can see what contributes to haplogroup and genetic diversity in the human species that we see here in Iraq, India, and East Asia. It is the admixture and hybridization with Homo neanderthalis in these clusters in Iraq, India, and East Asia that causes this genetic diversity. And this is important. This is important to acknowledge. Right? So to be African is to be Homo sapien. To be non-African is to be a result of hybridization. And this hybridization is important. It carries relevance. Why? Because Ozzy Osbourne had questioned why he was still alive. Ozzy Osbourne knew he did so much drugs. He should not be alive right now. So he inquired about this, and he had the resources and the money from all that rock music and biting the heads off of bats to have his genome sequenced. What him and the doctors found out was that he had hundreds of mutations in his immune system that contributed to his survival of this heavy drug use. But those hundreds of mutations were due to his Neanderthal ancestry. And it is exactly in the white blood cells that you find the Neanderthal genomes preserved. So when you look to find Neanderthal ancestry is preserved in the white blood cells being associated with the immune system. So it is not surprising that his immune system was affected by this Neanderthal admixture. So when we complain about the Western medical industry and how something seems off, how it doesn't seem to quite work as well for us, we have genetic divergence in our immune system. So the same health practices and standards that would work for white people will not be the same for us. It's because of this need. So these things are important. No one is implying better than, greater than, less than, nothing. We're just pointing out the genetic facts and what that implies. These things are important. So when we talk about coming out of Africa, there is so much that comes with being out of Africa. So much that comes with this human story of us leaving and then re-entering Africa. Anybody have something to add real quick before I move on to the next one?
Number 5, can I make a comment?
I'm agreeing. Oh, go ahead. I'm agreeing with everything.
That was the comment is that I was watching. Well, I was listening to there's the confirmation hearing of Senator Robert, I think the Kennedy guy.
Mm-hmm.
He was being questioned by one of the Democratic people about making the comment that melanated people were should
Stronger.
not be taking. Yes, and they took it in a negative way. And what you just said reminded me of that. And she was trying to, he was trying to say, because if you Google who has the strongest genetic gene pool in Google, it's going to tell you Africans. Okay, you can Google it. Ask that question in Google. And then, but just recently, the Robert Kennedy, or whatever his name is, he simply was trying to explain that they tried to posit him as a racist because he's admitting that our gene pool is much more dominant, much stronger, and these vaccines could harm us and not help us. I silence anyway. Anyway, I took that clip as evidence.
Yeah. He said that we should be giving lower dosages because too much is overdosing. She took it as, oh, black people don't get the same amount of health care. That's not what the man was saying at all. I watched that conversation.
Not at all. Not at all. Wow. Thank you.
No, thank you for bringing that out, because these things are key and essential to, noticing. And when we hear messages like that, we might misinterpret them when someone is trying to actually look out for us, when someone is trying to actually acknowledge, right, a deeper science that relates to us. We might mischaracterize them because we don't understand what's being said, right? Is that an example of what Cool and Haitian is talking about, where other races of people understand us better than we do?
Absolutely.
Cool and Haitian was just saying that.
Absolutely.
Right? So this is why these things are important. What I want to point out right here, right?
I think Jungle had his hand up. I'm so sorry because I know you're not looking at the screen.
Yo, I'm not looking at the screen. So if you guys could help me out with who raised their hand, that would be wonderful. I appreciate it. What's good, Jungle?
Yeah, what's good with y'all? How y'all doing? I was just gonna say that in regards to what you were saying about the haplogroup E, you know that West Africa is where the haplogroup E is from, right? And
because it's a subclade of DE. It's a subclade of DE, and DE is an African haplogroup, and E splits off from that. Yes, sir.
Oh, okay, cool. So West Africa is where the haplogroup E is most found, and West African descended are African Americans, Caribbean islands, etc. That's all I wanted to add real quick. Well, I'm gonna go ahead and mute myself.
No doubt, brother. Thank you. And I'll bring up the map of the E haplogroup real quick, just to veggie back off of your statement and refresh everyone, right? So let's get a visual for this, right? Remember, I brought this up when I was talking about the Natufians entering the Levant out of Africa, bringing the E haplogroup. This whole chart, right, is about the E haplogroup and its subclades and where it went. And look all of West Africa is this E haplogroup, just like the brother was saying, right? And from West Africa, the E haplogroup enters to southern Spain, right? Through Egypt, the E haplogroup enters the Levant, southern Turkey, and then enters into Europe, right? Through Turkey into Greece. And we know this E haplogroup, right? E1B1B, E1B1A, right? They associate with specifically Israel, right? Jerusalem ancestry, right? Some say the E1B1B subclade or E1B1A subclade originates in southern Arabia near Yemen and then enters up the Levant area at a later date than this, right? But it's important to highlight, since we're talking about these Natufians, again, these Natufians coming out of Africa who are carrying this African E haplogroup, like the brother Jungle just said, it is these Natufians who bring agriculture and the Proto-Semitic language into the Levant. And it was stated by Sir Arthur Keith, the anatomist, right, that these Natufians were African people, right, through his osteological analysis, the bones. But
What location
what
is
I found,
Nutupian? I have a quick question. What location
yes,
is the Nutupian? Like what location, like at this modern day, like what roughly are they located at, the Nutupian?
what would that correlate to? The Natufians lived in ancient Israel, ancient Syria, ancient Palestine.
Mm.
The Sumerians also migrated to Mesopotamia, and the ancestors of the Sumerians had to get rid of the Natufians for them to then colonize Mesopotamia. But it is also these Natufians who are the first inhabitants of Mesopotamia as well.
So those should be like Arabs,
I
though,
love
right?
it.
No,
No, those are Africans.
no.
They're Africans. Africans.
Those would be the ancestors of the black population that the Arabs replaced. The
Mhm.
Arabs came in, intermixed, and replaced these black peoples that we're talking about.
Hey,
Great
God,
question.
Jess,
Mm.
can you make a list, or someone here, whoever has the time, make a list, like a migratory list? And I'm glad, I guess it's being recorded, right? So I'm assuming it's gonna go on YouTube, right? So if you could also, I guess when you guys edit it, attach a list to it so that people could actually fully like understand, like, okay, this from this, you know what I mean? Because the graphic is
The
one thing, people could double
vocabulary.
tap on it, but yeah, the vocabulary. Like example, what is a haplogroup? So people could understand that, and like, you know, so they could look kind of like a study guide, you know, so that they could truly
Yes,
get it
sir.
in their brains, in their psyche, and in their cells of their body, that everything comes from Africa, no matter how you slice and dice it. Nobody existed prior to the blacks of Africa. Um, so if you could do that, and also one more thing, like the tribes, like the San Bushmen, the Khoisan and stuff like that, and the people of the Australia, Tasmania, Sentinel Island, if you could guys put like a list so that people could actually see this, and they could see this
Yes,
person came from here, like kind of like a times table type of list.
yes,
You know what I'm saying? Something like that.
yes. And this conversation started. We were talking about the San Bushmen a little bit because they
I
have
love this
they are the oldest genetic population. Papa Legba was
on
good,
Earth.
bro. Balboa was good. Good to see you. Sunshine Bear, good to see you. We were talking about the San Bushmen, the Khoi, right? The Khoisan peoples,
Hmm.
because they are the oldest genetic population, but they are not jet black, right? Their skin tone is very light, right? So when we talk about different races, racial groups, phenotypes, skin color, we see that Africans have always had the genetic expression of lighter skin, right? But when we talk about non-Africans, Indo-Europeans, Indo-Iranians, there is a paleness that is being expressed, not just a lightening of the skin like the Khoi, but there is a paleness that burns, that bubbles up, that sheds in the sunlight, which is very different from the light skin of the Khoi. So what's going on there, right? And I'm glad we got to this, right? The genetic expression of that burnt paleness of the skin has a lot to do with this Neanderthalis admixture, right? Because after you get this Neanderthalis admixture in these various places, then the genes become unstable and you see mutations and degeneracies that produce albinism in mass, not just one or two albinos, but then you start to see black populations that produce albinos in mass, right? Which is how you would get, hold on, right? Peoples that look like her. This is a Dravidian woman, right? The Dravidians are the black populations of India, right? But by the time the Dravidians come about as a distinct group, they already have Neanderthal admixture, right? And you can see her expression of albinism. She already has early expressions of albinism, small expressions of albinism, right? She did not eat foods that made her hair lighter. She did not move to a less sunny area that made her hair lighter, because look at the melanin content of her skin, right? So it is in the genes where we get expressions of these things. And it is specifically the OCA2 gene, right, that affects the lightness of the hair and the eyes. We see this expressed in the people of like the South, the Admanese Islands. The Admanese people have very, very blonde hair. They are the only indigenous black population that produce blonde hair, right? So it is through this hybridization and admixture. And, right, this is a Dravidian woman, black population of India. When Hitler was looking for the origins of the Aryan race, the origin of the Aryan phenotypes, where did he go? Where did it land him? In India, right? Because if you lighten up these peoples of India, they have the exact phenotypes that we would associate with white people. This man and this child are Dravidian albinos, right? This looks like the guy from Taken. He looks like he has a particular set of skills.
Mm-hmm.
And look at Dennis, and look at Dennis the
Liam
Menace
Neeson.
riding on his shoulder, right?
Liam Neeson, correct.
Liam Neeson and Dennis the Menace, right? And these people are Dravidian albinos. And you see the paleness that we're trying, not the coy light skin, but this paleness that burns and bubbles up in the sunlight. This is what we see. And it is these peoples who are the ancestral demographic of the peoples we would later call Indo-Europeans, aka white people, for lack of a better term. This is important. But it is through this admixture where you get the degeneration.
Oh, you might have to cam down, so that your page
Yes.
doesn't get banned. Just
Yeah,
cam down for a bit,
definitely.
or have
Definitely
somebody
calm
else
down
screen
for a bit.
share for you.
In a
Send
minute,
heart,
I'm
send
gonna.
heart, send heart. Very good.
Oh, I was gonna
Do
speak
you
while
do
you
you
were.
think
Go ahead.
do you think that's a form of
Yeah, put hearts in the
reverse
comments.
scientific racism?
Put a heart in the comment, Bivo, please. Thank you.
No, it's not a reverse scientific racism, because if I could answer that question, I'm not sure.
Yeah, go ahead.
Hold on, go. Well, hold on. Rep raised his hand. I think it's about the recording, so I don't know. I'll go first.
It's not about the recording. I was about to read an article that I was
Oh, okay.
not ChatGPTing, but pulling through, because to the point of how we identify our ethnicities, I was going to read this and try to be brief. It's a sensitive topic that requires a careful examination. What I was looking into was the usage of skull measurements and craniology to study the population's complex differences. And what it says that.
Craniometric.
Mhm.
Yep.
It says that in the 19th century, Samuel Morton and others attempted to use skull measurements to categorize human races and argue for racial hierarchies. This work was fundamentally flawed, both methodologically as well as ethically. and it was used to promote racist ideologies to justify oppression. Modern forensic anthropologists and bioarchaeologists do sometimes analyze skull features as one of the many tools to identify remains or study ancient populations. However, they recognize that humans' variation exists on a continuous spectrum rather than discrete racial categories. Number two, that skull features show more variation within populations than between them. Environmental factors influence skull development, and no skull features definitively indicate ancestry or ethnicity. Such analysis requires careful statistical methods and should only be used as part of a broader set of evidence. And lastly, the scientific consensus is that skull measurements cannot reliably determine ethnically or race, which are social constructs rather than biological categories. Just wanted to add that while you were.
Thank you for that. And I want to add on, right? What they tried to do with these classifications, they had dolichocephalic, right, which represented the African skull shape to them. It was almost like the elongated skull, where your skull is longer from forehead to the back of your skull than it is from ear to ear. When we see pictures of the Egyptians and they have those like elongated skulls, that represents what dolichocephalic means, right? Brachycephalic, I believe, was associated with the Asian skull shape, where it was wider from ear to ear than it is from forehead to back. And then cumbocephalic, I believe, is what they had considered the European skull shape. And just like Rep said, they used to use that. They used to use that as a means to determining race. And then what they found was there was so much variation, because Aryans, or people known as ancestral Aryans, are also known to have dolichocephalic skull shapes. And you can't have Aryans and Africans having the same skull shape. Now, can we? So they abandoned that.
Can I respond real quick to something else said earlier about if that's reverse racism or something? No, it's not. It's understanding history. And to what they're talking about, the greater context is a word called eugenics. They try to use the eugenics to basically demonize Black people and African people all around the world, and stuff like that. But no, it's not reverse racism. I'm not sure who asked that question. Simply because that doesn't exist, right? That's number one. And number two, they are proud to talk about their superiority, yet negating the fact that their superiority is built on the back of people of Africa, the people that they learned from, the people that taught them. Regardless of whatever religion you believe in, they don't want to tell you that. So it's not reverse racism to teach your children and yourself about the importance of where you come from and how the basis of humanity started, which internalizing that will let your kids realize that they're important, that they are somebody in this world. So this is not reverse racism. This is being proud of who you are. So there's a big difference.
And it's just science. We're purely talking about science.
Yeah.
It's a queen. I believe you raised your hand.
Cool basically said what I was gonna say, and you did. Is we're just talking science. It's not even about superiority or anything like that. Like, this is the evidence of our history, everybody's history, every Homo sapien history. We're not even talking, and it's just so happened that it points to Africa. That's what that is. Like, and I feel like people need to come to terms with that on a logistical standpoint and figure out why, when you hear life started in Africa, or why you hear that all of these migration patterns starts from Africa, why is that a discomforting moment for you? I think that's a kind of conversation you should have with yourself, though. Like, we don't have to have it here,
Right.
but I'm just saying.
Beautiful place that people should visit, actually. Oh, Jungle, I think. Go ahead, my bad, bro.
Yo, what's good? So listen, so In
So
regards to what you guys were saying with the Sands people, right? I mean, we're talking about a people that's been around for 300,000 years. Okay, their genes. Okay, so you got civilizations that haven't lasted that long. So this is
yep.
where I'm getting with this. They got Zoroastrianism, which is supposedly the oldest religion known to mankind. But how can that be when animism, I believe it's animism is
Animism.
yeah, is the first religion that came from the
And
Sans
so,
people, and it's
yep.
10,000 years old or more.
Mm-hmm.
You get what I'm saying?
Yes.
And that's the first. So really, statistically speaking, and the people in Sans, the Sans people now are no longer in South Africa. They're in West Africa, where we came from. Well, when I say
Well,
we, I mean us. Dominicans, North African Americans, whatever. That's in West. If you look it up right now, the Sans people migrated. They're no longer in South Africa. They're in the West Africa. So like God Energy was saying, they have a light skin too. That's why you get a lot of red bones now compared to back then in West Africa. You feel what I'm saying? So West African got the cohesion, got the Bantu people, the Bantu people, and then don't forget the religion of Orisha. Okay, is also
voodoo. For those that don't
exactly
understand what that means.
another supposed to be one. It's what they say now is the oldest religion in Africa, which is not true because Anism came way before that. But my point is that the Bantu, the Proto-Bantu language system created the hieroglyphs too. So there's all of this evidence that points to West Africa and even South Africa. But no one ever wants to, everybody always wants to discredit West and South Africa and give all the credit to East Africa, when even in a haplogroup genetic, they have determined that the haplogroup E comes from West Africa too. Let's talk about it.
Yes, sir.
Mm.
It's a subclade of the DE haplogroup, the African DE
Mhm.
haplogroup, and then it splits and becomes its own. What's good? What's good? Cool.
All right. So what I want to say is this: he is correct about animism, but animism was the deification of certain animal groups. But the first religion on earth that was monotheistic by nature, of which people believed in a god, is voodoo. So he is correct about animism, but animism, I mean, Voodoo could trace some of his lineage to that. Whereas animism, I believe, is 7,000 something years old, voodoo 6,000 years old, Christianity is 2,000
Like
years old,
animism
and
basically is
Islam
like
is,
believing in spirits. It's believing that everything is a spirit and is
the
energy, but
spirit
it's
of the
still the
animal,
oldest
the spirit
religion.
of the animal. It is,
Yeah,
but
that
it doesn't
everything
have
has
the
life and it's a spirit.
right. It doesn't have the voodoo actually comes from that, by the way, but it doesn't have the belief that a Papa, like you see his name Papa Legba, which basically
Exactly,
means
exactly.
Dambala or Papa Bonjour, which means God. So he is correct in that, but in terms of animism is basically animalistic. It's not like an organized religion like Voodoo. You know what I'm saying? I mean, I don't want to
It's more
sidetrack on
primitive,
that, but you have to
exactly.
look into
It's more like a primitive practice. Like it's like basically believing everything has a soul and a spirit, but it's not like believing that there's a name of a god and that but if I'm not mistaken, the Sans people did believe in two gods. They believed in Gui and they believed in Kung. So they did believe in God too. And this is the
yeah.
stuff that
I mean,
people want
I'm not
people.
sure.
This is the thing that
I'd
okay.
have to do some
So
research on it. I'm not sure.
but this is my point though. So just like you said, they have said that the animism people don't believe in God, but
Mhm.
if you look up their culture, they got a name of two gods.
Yeah, I'm looking it up
So
right
how
now.
did it?
Yeah, he's correct about that. He's correct about that.
Yeah, Gui,
Yeah, he is correct about
GUI,
that.
and then Kung. And it's funny because Kung is like Kong in the Congo, and then Guina, okay, Papa Guina is the same GUI before it's ENA. I'm kind of dyslexic, so I get words mixed up if you
Right.
haven't noticed. But
But like
you feel what
Guinea.
I'm saying?
Yes.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes. And
GUI
thank you.
Guinea.
Thank you for that, Jungle. I would like to land this here because it went to you, then Cool, but y'all got into a great back and forth. We love the information you just brought out. You just edified all of us about the gods, but I also do want to
Mhm.
get to the other hands. I think it's on 100%. %. You there?
Box 10.
Oh, my
Box
bad.
Box
10.
I
10.
was listening to y'all. I just had a question real quick. So when you say like Africans migrated, are you saying Africans migrated from Africa to America? Like, because according to my research,
Everywhere.
Africans never left the continent of Africa.
What?
That's
Never.
that's hilarious. That's
Can I respond to that?
hilariously that's hilariously inaccurate. I don't know who he was addressing that to, but I'm gonna answer and then
That
you
was
can
to
go
you,
ahead.
brother, the moderator.
No doubt,
Well, he
much
didn't know.
appreciated, brother.
He just showed you a
100%.
map.
I believe.
He just showed you a map
I
of where
believe.
they come from.
I
Go
believe
ahead. My bad.
that's antiquated medieval 1490, no, not even 1492, even after, because in 1492 those Europeans knew Africans migrated and went places because they were ruled
Literally.
by Africans for the previous 700 years, right? So this might be like an 1800s kind of view, a post-slavery kind of view here. It's very antiquated and it's not rooted in anything historically or scientifically accurate. I would urge you to check your sources and
But
then
bro,
look into
hold on. What I meant to
vet
say
He
is
said,
that
what do
my
you
sources.
mean?
I would
statement.
like,
Hold on, brother.
can I,
Listen.
Africans
can I,
migrating out of Africa is what created the whole
can I,
world.
hold on. We go by a hand system here, right? Brother Jungle, you are
Yeah,
a
I raised my hand.
warrior.
I'll go after.
I appreciate you, Brother Jungle, but we gotta
Appreciate you.
speak in turn. We gotta speak in turn here. No doubt,
Yeah, I was
brother.
trying to have a
You,
dialogue with this brother
you
just real
were.
quick.
But 100%, if you feel like you want to clarify your question or statement, please do so.
I want just 15 seconds, then I'm gonna let Cool Haitian go. So watch this though. If a person I'm from Nigeria, so if a person from Nigeria travels from Nigeria to America, right? Let's say a family of like 15 people, 100 years later, that those people still would be in America if they stayed here. That same logic applies to Africans migrating out of Africa. If a specific tribe migrated from Africa to America, we would still see that migrated population in America today, and we don't see it. We see Native
Okay.
Americans.
Hold on.
Unless, hold on, because I never got to finish my statement because everyone jumped in,
Right.
right? So with that, the flaw in your logic, you are discounting genetic annihilation, which happens. Not every population is perpetual, right? That's not how genetics works. That's not how populations works. That's not how it works. You get what I'm saying? Genetic extinction does happen. Not every single genetic population that has ever existed on the human time scale still exists. But what you do have, right, in correlation to your statement, you do have the legacy of the Africans coming here. You do have and it's interesting that we honed in on America, right? We randomly chose America out of all places as our example. I'm suspicious if this is a Aboriginal American anti-African rhetoric we're about to get into, but let's just say America happened to be random, right? We do still see the remnants of the African gold tip spears that they came here and traded with, right? The gold of these gold tip spears was analyzed. My source on this is Dr. Ivan van Sertima, who wrote Golden Age of the Moors. He also wrote They Came Before Columbus. He also wrote They Came Before Columbus, right? And what he points out is that they analyzed the atoms of these gold tip spears, and they find that the gold of these gold tip spears were atomically identical to the gold mined in West Africa. Also, right, you have the linguistic connections here of banana, right? That term banana came to the Americas because of the Africans bringing it here, which turned into bakuku, right? And various forms of banana and bakuku, right? It's a loan word. You can see
All right,
African
so in
loan
other
words.
words, basically what you're saying is
Hold
we
on.
have
I raised my hand. I raised my hand, brother.
Could you hold on? Yeah, because we're not arguing. And like I said to my brother Jungle, we go by a hand raising system here. Everyone speaks uninterrupted. Then you can add your opinion. I'm not arguing with you. I'm not mad at you. I'm glad to meet you.
Oh, my
We're all
bad,
just
brother.
sharing knowledge. No doubt, no doubt at all.
Hmm.
But not to make this the rhetoric and internal blood and crip beef of America versus Africa, right? We went through the E haplogroup, the L haplogroup, and the expansions of the E haplogroup and the L haplogroup out of Africa, and I didn't mention America once, right? So
Nope.
that America thing was very odd to me, right? So when you analyze the genetics, we are using genetic evidence primarily. We can get into cultural things and the black and red ware pottery and the dome and cut sepulchers that you can see traveling from East Africa into India with the Dravidians. All of that type of information is there to show, and that's tangible evidence to show migration. But right now we're dealing with the genetic evidence primarily, and we've been talking about the L3 haplogroup, the M haplogroup, the N haplogroup, and the E haplogroup, and I've shown maps of their expansion and travel, right? So the genetic evidence, all of the genetic evidence that powers Ancestry.com, 23andMe, MyHeritage DNA, and the like, all of that genetic evidence shows the migration of Africans to various places. Who raised their hand after
Oh, that was
100%?
me. That was
Go
me.
ahead, cool.
Just to quickly debunk that, and is this Dr. Light? Sound like Dr. Light? I'm not sure. 100%. I don't know if that's Dr. Light or not. But yes, the Africans traveled, and he wanted to bring up America. Well, simply the oldest tribe, the oldest people that created civilization in America, in the Americas, which by the way, human beings came to the Americas last compared to everywhere else. And they were black. They're called the Olmecs. Literally, they built pyramids that look like the ones you find in Egypt, Timbuktu, parts of the Mali Empire. Literally, if you Google the Olmecs, the oldest existing tribe in the Americas, they come. That's who they are. And even before that, people were traveling. You gotta understand, people traveled tens of thousands of years before this. So it is what it is. Now you're gonna say the Olmecs are not black. You can literally look at their statues and they'll tell you that they're black. Go ahead, Goddard. I mean, this anti-black thing is it's this is
Hmm.
why I lose patience because it's like the evidence could be in front of you, and if you're from Nigeria, then I don't know why you don't understand the beautification and the history of black people. I'm from Haiti. We taught this. I'm from Haiti. My dad's Dominican and Haitian. We learned this at a young age. So it is what it is. The same people that tell you the Olmecs are not black God energy will also tell you that black people did not create civilizations like Egypt. And if
Of
that is
course.
Dr. Light, I've heard him say that black people did not create anything before. So he's coming from a whole different mindset. You know what I mean?
Yes,
That's just what
yes.
it is.
Very historically inaccurate, based in various anti Black and African rhetorics seems a
Uh-huh.
little obvious. I get that, but when we're talking about, so then let's continue with the brainwashed rhetoric, popular mainstream
Hmm.
controversy of the day, and let's stay on American aboriginalism, right? I don't
Hmm.
even have to bring up Africa when it comes to Aboriginal America. Actually,
Hmm.
as a curveball, right? As a side sneak punch that knocks you out because you didn't expect it. I actually like to talk about the Melanesian migration and populating of the Americas. I don't have to say that the
Hmm.
Olmecs were African. I don't have to say that blackness entered the Americas through Africa. I'm perfectly fine with what the real scholarship says. The populating of the Americas by black Melanesians via Australia
Hmm.
and a migration here across the Pacific Ocean, right?
Polynesian.
What I want to show you is the pre-Olmec culture, right? Known as the Mokaya culture, the pre-Olmec Mokaya
Hmm.
culture, right? These peoples were centered not on the East Coast, right? They're not on the East Coast, indicating they came from Africa. These peoples, the Mokaya culture, is centered on the West Coast, right?
Hmm.
The direction they would be if they came from Melanesia and Australia. And it is exactly the Australasian population that we know migrated across the Beringer Strait. When they talk about humans migrating across the Beringer Strait into the Americas, right? When you look, it says that they are Australasian, right? Australasians, these are the Melanesians. These are the black populations of Australia. And I'm looking for this map here. Where is it at? Where is it at? This one. Boom, right? When we're talking about the populating of the Americas, right? Off the L3 haplogroup, the same one I referenced before when I was talking about the haplogroup explosions and Neanderthal ancestry, right? L3 haplogroup, this is tracking the C haplogroup, which goes into Aboriginal Australia, Melanesia, Indonesia, right? But it splinters. In Asia, the southern group goes into Aboriginal Australia, Melanesia. The northern Australasians travel up into Mongolia, they splinter into Asia, and then they travel into the
The Bering
Americas.
Strait.
The Bering
That part
Strait.
you're pointing, that's the Bering Strait, yeah.
Through the Bering Strait. These peoples are Australasians, Aboriginal Australians, Melanesians, right? The black peoples of Aboriginal Australia. And this is where the melanated population of the Americas comes from. So we don't have to say Africa, Africa, Africa. Let's leave Africa out. But when you
It's
hear
still Africa, though.
all of your,
It's just the east side of Africa. It comes from the east side. It's still Africa. It's all Africa. Like, I don't think
yes,
why people don't.
yes,
I'm
but
not trying to cut
hold
you off,
on,
but
hold
like,
on, cool and
it's not hard
Haitian.
for
Let me
people to
land my
understand this
plane
shit.
real quick, cool. Let me land my plane real
Yeah,
quick, brother.
go ahead.
No
Go
doubt,
ahead.
much appreciated. You got next, right? We're talking about this ethnicity, right? Because people want to feel like they are native to the Americas. Black people sprang out from the soil of the Americas, and that's who they and their ancestors are. Completely wrong, right? So
Right.
even when we acknowledge this blackness of the Americas, which I do, I love the blackness of the Americas, we have to acknowledge where they came from. And these peoples are migrants from two different directions. You have these Australasians, these Melanesians, right, coming through the Beringer Strait. They're also island hopping directly to the Americas because you have island chains that were exposed here that connect Australia to the Americas because the sea level was lower back then, right? And it is these peoples who settle on the west coasts of the Olmec territory because they're coming from this direction. That's why the Makoya are centered on the west coast, not the east coast, who would have came from West Africa. So we can leave Africa out, right? Let's talk about the black Melanesians that populated and colonized the Americas. That's where this blackness comes from. And I'm going to land my plane with this right here, right? The didgeridoo, right? The didgeridoo. Instrument, Aboriginal, right? Look at this black man, Aboriginal, Australian, Melanesian. It is this man and his ancestors who populated the Americas. They established Norte Chico. They contributed to the Olmec civilization. And I'm going to give this piece of anthropological evidence. This didgeridoo, right? Famous instrument of the Aboriginal Australians. Women are not allowed to use the didgeridoo, right? Then we have the Bonampak mural, right? Of the Aboriginal Americans playing the didgeridoo. Right? So when you talk about remnants of populations, if people's migrated, we would see remnants of things. We do. But you have to dig deeper, right? And there are cultural and anthropological correlations that can be made from ancestral populations to their later descendants. Go ahead, cool.
Right. Actually, I think she said what I want
Or
to say.
whoever was next.
Everything. No, I was next, but I was just gonna agree with the comment.
Okay.
Everything came out of Africa. I don't waste my time arguing with people when the evidence is there. Even the people that colonized Nigeria told you that it was blacks first. So we're not gonna get there. Just for people to understand, these things took thousands of years. He wrote in the comments, not even world-class athletes could walk that far. You think they did it in one day? thousands of years they settled along different places. He just went through a map where he showed you where people literally settled, people migrated, continued, and they continued and continued. They would settle there for a couple hundred years. Some would stay, some would go off different directions. That's just life. That happens in modern life where you have a family member in Florida, another one in New York. People settle, bro, but that doesn't mean they're not the same group of people. So if your mindset is this elementary, it's kind of sad because, quite frankly, once again, and I don't want to make this personal, but I had this conversation with you. One of the main reasons why you feel that way is because you stated that black women were not attracted to you in school. That has nothing to do with the genetics, my friend. That is a personal issue. There's therapy for that, and there's no distraction going on here. We know everything came from Africa. That's not like there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with that. That's actually the whole world agrees to this. This is not just a general consensus. There's science behind this shit, anthropology behind this shit. You know what I mean? Biology behind this, DNA behind this. And who do you think the Tainos and the Arawaks, who do you think they were? The black, the Boricuas. Who do you think the Yamasee in North America were?
Gene.
They're black.
So Gene,
hold
listen,
on, let me finish. Please.
listen.
Hold on, let me finish. Dude, please. What do you mean listen? I have my hand up. Hold on. Right? These are
You gotta raise your hand, people.
Yeah, he was next, but I want to just land my plane. These are
Okay.
darker hued skinned people. Even when Columbus came here, he literally mentioned the color of these people. So this guy in the comments said the Tainos were white. I'm okay. I think I'm not gonna respond to him no more. Go ahead, John. This is why I curse people out that are stupid.
He said the Tainos are right.
Yeah, that's why I get mad at dumb people, bro.
No, but listen. What I was
Go
gonna
ahead.
talk to God Energy about and I know that you come next, number 10. I already know. So basically, I already know that what you were saying, God Energy. Also, I wanted to conclude a little bit with what you're talking about and what Gene is talking about. By the way, Gene is a common Haitian name for y'all who don't know. Gene, everybody who's Haitian's name is Gene.
Literally.
Real shit. It's like Spanish people call Jose. But my point is that God Energy, I was gonna say that yeah, you know, the natives and the Asians both come from the Siberians, and they're both Mongoloid descendant. What do you conclude about that?
I'm so glad you asked that question. I'm gonna keep it short. I'm going to keep it short so the rest of the list can go ahead. But the Asians followed the black population to the Americas. And the same way in the West, you see this rivalry between black peoples and white people, the people we call white, right? Indo-Europeans. In the East, there was that rivalry between black peoples and Mongoloids and Asians, right? So this same way that the Mongoloids followed the black populations across the Beringer Strait, continuing their beef and competition in the Americas, we see that in China as well, right? Because China had changed hands from the more melanated kingdoms like the Xia Empire and the Shang Empire to the more Mongoloid empires like the Zhou, right? It happened in Japan. It happened in Japan, right? With the Ainu during the Jamon period. Then you get the Mongoloid Yayoi to replace them. Right? It happened in Thailand, Thailand and Vietnam, where you had the melanated Khmer civilization or Khmer civilization. Then you have the Mongoloid Dai Viet, where you get Vietnam from. So you see this pattern, right, of competition and replacement. And then as those Mongoloids came to the Americas, who replaced the melanated Aboriginal American populations like the Olmecs and the Aztecs, the more Mongoloid Maya, right? So that competition between blacks and Asians followed these peoples from Asia into the Americas.
And God Energy, if you're landing, Tidewater was next at 100%. You're right after.
No, I was just saying, like, the brother,
No,
the
brother,
moderator.
it's on box 6. It's on box 6. It's on
No, box
Tidewater.
6. You know what? It was on me, but box 6, you can go ahead and I'll go after you. Go ahead.
No, it was on Tidewater, then you.
No,
Yeah, it was on Tidewater.
It was on him and then her, bro. Let's not do
No.
homie like that, bro.
Let box 6 go, and then I can go. She can go, and then I can go.
Yeah, she's the woman. So that's the,
Thank you.
she's the woman.
Okay,
so
no
it's
need
She's a
to-
woman. It's
no
just
need
I
to-
have patience. But go ahead.
No need to argue.
I can
Thank you.
wait though if he need to,
No,
speak.
ma'am. Go ahead.
No, go
Go
ahead,
ahead.
Queen.
I got unlimited patience. Go ahead.
Go ahead, Queen. Go ahead,
Okay.
Queen.
I'm sorry,
Um,
guys.
I
We're gonna
just
look
want
at
to
the hand.
ask a question.
Everybody. Her, Jungle,
Where is the proof
then
that
good. So it was
Africans
her.
went to the Americas
Thank
before
you.
Columbus? My question, yeah.
Can you say your question again? Because I couldn't hear you. I
I,
don't
I,
know if
I want to
anybody
know
else heard,
when
but
have
I did.
Somebody
Africans
turned on their screen
entered
while
to the
you're talking,
Americas
but go ahead.
before Columbus?
So what
Hmm?
was the
Oh
question? It
yeah,
sounds low. What was the-
it's well documented
I'm
that
sorry.
It's well documented that Africans came here before Columbus. Most definitely, we have the story of Mansa Musa's brother Abu Bakari, who
Mhm.
sailed off the west coast of Africa. These were the peoples who were trading those gold tip spears that I was talking about. So we kind of touched on this already. I'm glad you asked this question so we could further bring it out, right? It was these Africans of Abu Bakari, right? Mansa Musa's brother, Mansa Musa, the richest man that ever existed in history. His brother sailed to the Americas, and it was these peoples who were trading in these gold tipped spears, right? It is not the Africans who are only talking about Abu Bakari and his sailing off the west coast of Africa. When Mansa Musa made Hajj to Mecca, right? Because Mansa Musa was a Muslim. When he made Hajj to Mecca, the Arabs asked him, hey, yo, what happened to your brother that left and sailed away, right? So we have this preserved in sources even outside of Africa, corroborating this historical event, right? Because when you have two different ethnic groups reporting the same thing, this is how you more establish the credibility of the claim. But if I have two Roman sources, like say Josephus and Tacitus, we still have to do further analysis because we know this could be propaganda and a unified message put out by one group. But when you have things historically recorded by two different groups, this is how you add more credibility and validity to it. So the fact that the Arabs also preserved this event where they had no incentive to lie or fabricate, right? Further proves the validity of this happening. And it's not just Abu Bakari and that event, right? Because we have the Carthaginians, right, who circumnavigated Africa, making their way into the Atlantic Ocean, where there are three oceanic currents that naturally bring you to the Americas, right? And what do we find on the east coast of America? We find Carthaginian Phoenician inscriptions. These very same Carthaginians who had entered the Atlantic Ocean. So what we see is a pattern of whoever was in control of Northwest Africa had access to those currents and came to the Americas, which is why when Europeans defeated the Moors and the Europeans got control of Northwest Africa, the first thing the Europeans did in 1492 was come to the Americas, right?
Thank
So
you.
this model of control of Northwest Africa, bringing you to the Americas, is also the exact reason why the Europeans colonized the Americas and thus brought all of our populations, all of us on this panel, we are here in the Americas because of this pattern of whoever controls Northwest Africa comes to the Americas. I yield.
Yeah, dude. I'm God energy. I'm
All
sorry,
right, let
but
me
the
say
fact that
this
you
real
had to
quick. I
explain
wanted I
basic
wanted to
shit to
touch on
people.
this guy's American thing real quick. So if you look at America, right, he said that the blacks that were in America after they migrated suffered genetic annihilation. Now, genetic annihilation was taught to us
He
by
never said
Francis
that.
Cress Wilson.
He
I
never
No,
said
never,
listen, no,
that.
I
He
hold on,
never
never,
said
I
hold on,
that.
hold on,
never
bro.
said
Let me
that.
finish real quick. Let me finish.
No, but you
I
can't
said
finish
that those
live though. This is
Africans.
being recorded. He never said that.
No, listen though. But we said that those Africans migrated to America. Then I asked him. I said, well, what happened to them? Just like if I go on vacation overseas, right? My family's there,
Oh
and we
man.
and we stay there. They're still going to be there. He said that they got wiped out somehow or something happened to them. Explained to you is that a lot of people use this migration thing because they've never ever sailed a boat across the Atlantic in their lives. Never. The amount of energy and preparation, you can't drink salt water, right? You got to have fresh water, you got to have sanitation, you got to have so much going for you. Like you have to be so sophisticated. When you get to America, you are not going to be wiped out by these primitive people in America. You're going to be extremely sophisticated in warfare and survival and everything. There's no way on earth you're going to. And then on top of that, remember this trip takes like 3 to 6 months, right? With hurricanes, like storms, like 50-foot waves. I'm talking, and then you might get a hole in your boat. I mean, you're risking your life just to be traveling, just so you can say in the future, well, blacks traveled everywhere. You're not going to do it. You're not going to take a trip like that. Remember, there were no lights back then. When people are telling y'all this stuff, you got to take your mind and rewind the clock back to the 1400s when they had no technology, no cell phones, no GPS, nothing. Everything is hostile. Bears are running around, animals running around, tornadoes running around. There's no medical facilities, no hospital, nothing. And you're like, hey guys, you want to get together and just go to America and trade gold for no reason? And then they don't even have a plan B to get back. They get wiped out when they get there. That would be stupid. Nobody would do that. So like I said, when you really think about overseas navigation, it makes less and less sense. Now, what they want you to do is they want to romanticize this thing about blacks being like these super people that are traveling everywhere, and that's cool. And they want you to agree with that. And then if you don't agree with it, you're racist. Brother Gene, I like Cool Haitian. He said the Olmec are black because of their phenotypical features, like their lips and nose. I'm about to lay my plane. Watch this. Did you know that there's over 500 Olmec statues? The Olmec come from the Toltec people. Look it up. Toltec. The other, besides the ones with big lips and broad nose, all the other ones are pale skin, and they look just like the natives that live in that area. Just because someone has big lips and broad nose does not make them black. There are indigenous people in China that are dark skinned with big noses and plump butts. You wouldn't believe it, but there are. So I'm simply saying that phenotypical features does not make one black. Genetics make one black. Those Olmecs are not black. Blacks never sailed to America, and I land the plane. Thank you.
The level of ignorance.
So
I'm
hold
really
on,
trying to hold my
cool.
here.
As the host, let me just clear up a couple things because he
Sure, go ahead.
definitely misquoted me. No one ever said that these
You did.
Africans were genetically annihilated by the Aboriginals when they came here. No one implied that the Aboriginals were primitive people, right? Very poor in characterizing what is going on here. Most definitely. Right, and you can still see the remnants of the genetics of these black Melanesians in the populations of the Amazon forest. I would urge you to look up the study done about the Australasian and Melanesian DNA, right, found in the Aboriginal tribes in the Amazon, brother, which is why I keep saying this conversation is based in genetic evidence right now. We could go into cultural continuity. We can go into the affinities here, like Thor Heyerdahl in his work Kon-Tiki that talks about the sweet potato, the use of the sweet potato, the bringing of the sweet potato from Melanesia and Polynesia to the Americas, the same word being used, all types of things. I showed you the didgeridoo. So we can do this anthropologically, but let's just get down to the facts and the genetics, right? Something that's less subjective or less open for discussion. The genetic evidence is the genetic evidence, right? So that's why I stated that this conversation was firmly rooted in the genetic conversation. I don't know where someone would get the idea that Africans never left the continent. It is very Eurocentric. It is very 17th and 18th century Eurocentric, completely antiquated, right? A plastic bottle, I'm going to land my plane with this. A plastic bottle will make its way from Africa to America as long as it stays afloat. Why? Because there are 3 oceanic currents that naturally bring you from the west coast of Africa to the Americas. The color of the Carthaginians had nothing to do with my explanation of the model. The model I used for the Carthaginians was that they were in control of Northwest Africa, which is what brought them to the Americas because they had access to these currents. Their skin color had nothing to do with it, even though you're completely incorrect by calling them white people. I have the primary evidence showing that they had black phenotypes. So with this, I would just urge one to question your preconceived notions and do a little bit of research right here instead of holding so fast to being anti-black or anti-conscious community rhetoric.
Yeah. So
Whose hand was next?
It was me. It was me. The reason why I get frustrated is just the way he misquoted you. He tried to hone in on me saying they were black just because their lips and noses. That's not what I said. I stated one evidence, right? Then he cut me off, and I moved on. So you misquote people because you're very Eurocentric. Well, you're a self-hating black man. That's just what it is. At the end of the day, bro, the fact that you believe that the Africans, or black people from Africa, never navigated the seas. The Carthaginians were not only black, they had the first, second, and third Punic Wars. There's a gentleman named Hannibal Barca. He's literally noted in Roman history as being black. They're noted for being black from Africa. They went across the Mediterranean Sea, right? The oldest ship in Africa is literally found in your country, Nigeria. Literally. And for this man to say, well, they have to have fresh water, do you think these people were that stupid? Like, you're thinking about GPS. How the fuck you think Columbus got here, if you believe in Columbus like that? In 1492, you think they had GPS? No. These people used the stars, my friend. They didn't need GPS. They used the stars. They used the current of the waters like he was telling you about. They didn't need GPS. You think people are traveling all across the world and they didn't think that they needed fresh water? Mm-hmm. Are you aware why they salted certain meats? Are you aware how they contain water? You ever heard something called heavy water? You know what that does? It dilutes. So this is shit going down thousands of fucking years. How the hell you think exactly Marco Polo? How do you think people like fucking all these other people, Magellan, travel the world? Ships, my friend, are the oldest form of transportation in human history. Even today, 90% of your cargo comes from ships.
Period.
Like, what are we talking about here?
Before the next person goes, I just want to add in real quick. It is actually the movement of fish and their seasonal migrations that the modern anthropologists are saying influenced Africans to also leave Africa. The same way herdsmen and pastoralists follow their cattle wherever the cattle migrates, the same thing happened with fish. And they now believe that because of their findings of the earliest burning and catching of fish, that it was the migrations of these fish that enticed Africans to also leave Africa, thus facilitating their migration. Another thing I want to say is that Egyptian shipwrecks have been found off the coast of Ireland where they were mining tin from. So these Africans definitely left Africa and went to other places. And it's, again, I think weird that everyone keeps focusing on America, 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 because you guys are trying to trap us into this corny blood and Crip style beef between America and Africa. And it is the people that hate Africa that always make this conversation about that. If you notice, any pro-African person on this panel never spoke against America, never tried to compare Africa to America, never tried to make Africa greater than the Americas, but it is always those who seek to find American Aboriginal heritage that find some reason to try to beef with Africa, and it's corny. Go back to the list, whoever was next.
It was Issa Queen. It was Issa Queen.
Yeah, just
thank you.
a quick reminder for everyone that we are recording, so please try not to talk over each other so we can hear everyone. Hand raising always helps with that. Yeah, that was it. I don't have anything else to say. Just remember, we are recording, y'all.
The Khufu ship, the people, the Swahili people. I mean, the fact that people don't understand how people navigated back in the day, that's it's just.
Jungle, you're up next.
Yeah, I'm up, but I was gonna say, Tidewater, you want to go first? Tidewater,
No,
you wanna
you can
go?
go
You wanna go
ahead.
first? Okay. What I was gonna say was that yeah, basically like it's it's crazy that you said that you don't think that they weren't using boats. Like the first place boats were used was through history. If you look, was through the Nile, land of Punt. Do you
Yep.
understand me? North Africans that went through the Mediterranean, like he said, the Arabic Peninsula. Do you understand? Do you know what you're saying? Like before they was even migrating to the west, they already knew how to use boats on the east side and in the north side. The west side was just yet to come, which eventually it did. But for you to say that nobody, as opposed to a group of people leaving Africa to go to the Americas, maybe not. But as for you to say that no Africans ever went to the Americas on a boat ever is it's just not. You have to come with some concrete proof because it just doesn't make sense with history. It doesn't
It's
correlate
just
with history.
it's just ignorance, bro. People that are just they hate themselves, so
And the
you
reason why
can't
I
do nothing
say
about
it
that.
doesn't correlate with history, and I'm not trying to bash him, but the reason that I say it doesn't, because he's doctrinated, the world is brainwashed. The reason that I say that it doesn't correlate with history is because if you look at the history, there's concrete proof, like we've said, that they've been using navigation systems on the water, and like Gene said, the oldest navigation systems was on the boats.
That's an idiot,
Go
bro.
ahead,
Anyway,
boss. Tidewater was next, but go ahead.
I'll be back. God, thank you for having me, bro. Before I curse people out, let me
Yes,
go
sir.
relax a little bit. I have an issue
I
with
feel
idiots,
you,
man.
bro. I'm
Thank
not.
you. I'll be
I'm
back,
trying
Josh.
not to
Thank you.
bust my gun right now, too. No
Hmm.
doubt, bro. I believe it's on Tidewater.
Yeah, Ty was.
I believe.
Yeah, I'm not doubting there was any black people here before Columbus, but is it actual proof of that? Like, let's be
Yes.
honest. Because the only trace I can see of black people here is through the Atlantic slave trade. Until I see actual evidence of black people being here before Columbus, then I will believe it. Before then, no. I'm
Can
sorry.
I
Black
say
black
something to that
black
really
people were
quick?
created in a
Hold
lab
on,
here in the States.
silly rabbit, honey. We have an order that we're going in. We're raising hands and we're taking turns. Okay? I just wanted to say to that, right? Even in this conversation, God Energy has been very vocal about different evidences that they have, right? We've been talking about the genetic code. If you're finding the genetic code of Afro Asians and Afro Melanesians and all of this stuff inside of the people living here, that in itself is a remnant of those people, right? When he showed the, I don't know if that was a musical instrument or just a horn, but when he showed that, right, and showed how it went from it being Australasian musical tool to it being native to America, that was the evidence, right? We're giving the evidence. It's just you have to be able to receive it as what it is. Because if you can't hear it, then it doesn't matter how loud God Energy says it. You're just not going to intake it. But the evidences has been told on this panel. That's it.
I don't see
What?
any hand. However,
What does that say? What does that say though? Examines the culture analogy between Native Americans and Africans, offering evidence the presence of African explorers in the New World centuries before the arrival of Columbus. Yes, there's black people that came here before Columbus did.
Those were the ones that were created in the laboratories.
Two things. When we say black people, the world's melanated Negroid population. When we say black people, we're not just talking about the American black population. And the term black does not only apply to the American Negro population. The term black was not invented and applied for the American Negro population. We are very Amerocentric with understanding, and a lot of our people don't even realize that the term black applies to any population around the world that exhibits specific phenotypes, usually called Negroid or Africoid. I just wanted to also clear that part up as well, because I know sometimes that causes confusion. What I want to get into here as well, because I know this is a statement against Africa, but I want to pose the question to all of the people that love Aboriginal America. Why is it that the people that teach you about Aboriginal America, why is it that those that are on Beagle that push Aboriginal America in juxtaposition to Africa, that always has Africa's name in their mouth when they're trying to make this American point, how come it is that none of your Aboriginal pseudo chiefs and Aboriginal Beagle gurus and Aboriginal YouTube gurus, how come they never told you about the Melanesian ancestry of the Aboriginal Americans? How come it's that they never told you about Kon-Tiki, the book written by Thor Heyerdahl, right? How come no one's talking about where the blackness in Aboriginal America comes from? They're not telling you which black group migrated to the Americas. We're not talking about Africans. We're talking about the Melanesians and Australasians that migrated to the Americas, creating the foundation population of melanated Aboriginal peoples who you guys claim to be. Answer me that question. How come Native has never told you about this? How come Dane Calloway has never told you about this? How come the Beard God Savage has never told you about this? How come Prime has never told you about this? About the Melanesians laying the foundation in the Americas.
There
When
was
you
the
hear
Nubians, man.
history, why don't you hear the term Melanesians and Australasians? That's what I'm asking you. Maybe you should ask yourself that question too.
It was the Nubians, man.
I don't know if I
One
can.
just
I
go for it.
agree. He's on point with the haplogroup stuff. I'm gonna be honest. I can't compete with him in that area, but the area that I can compete with him in is
You can't
some of the
compete in
things
any
that he's
area.
telling y'all. Well, I'm competitive, but some of the things that he's saying is like he's quoting like authors like Dr. Ivan Van Sertima. These people have a clear bias, so it's
No, I
like they're
haven't.
almost spreading like black colonialism of sorts. So we know that the Native Americans were genocided by the European people when they came in contact with the European people, and I think it's shameful for African Americans who descend from Africa to come along, a few hundred years later and then claim these people's land. After black people went through a Holocaust of their own, it's inappropriate behavior, but that's how people are. Like I said, if you look at the Olmec culture, forget about those large stone statues with thick lips and broad nose. There's 400 other statues. They look nothing like black people. If black people
You
left
can go
from
after
Africa
me.
and they came to America, they would still be there. Just like remember that y'all mentioned the Sentinel Island earlier, those Jawa people. We don't know where those Jawa people came from. I'm thinking they came from somewhere around Madagascar, but they're still there. So whatever voyage they left, wherever they came from, they're still there, and they have boats. Like you're right, you can ride currents and get lost and get trapped. I think that's what happened to the Australians. But in America, if blacks sailed there, there would still be a small population of blacks there, just like the people of the Jawa people of the Andaman Islands. But you don't see them. You don't see no blacks there. The only blacks there in America and the Caribbean are people that were took there. And then Gene said the Arawak, the Taino, and Boricua are black, and that's just completely not true. That's totally just like, don't let people trick y'all like that. That's crazy. I lay my plane.
So before Tidewater goes, I want to point out that the history of the Sentinel Islands, the isolation of the Sentinel Islands, the lack of colonization of the Sentinel Islands are why an archaic group can just stay sustained like that, right? Because we know there were black populations in North Africa, but we see them washed out, right? So I want to highlight the difference of the histories of the Americas, the aspect of the melting pot, right? The multiple historical genocides that have been documented that happened in the Americas. It would be ridiculous and historically ignorant to try to compare anthropologically the histories and cultural factors of genetic remnants and compare the Sentinel Islands to the Americas. That would seem a little bit ridiculous. You know what I mean? That would be like, how come we're not still doing the same things that the people in the Amazon are doing because we're all humans? They live a different life. The people in the Amazon live in a jungle. They have limited technology. And that would be why we see us doing different things as modern, technologically advanced peoples living in cities, right? So to compare the Sentinel Islands, that isolationism that goes on there versus what happens in the known melting pot of the Americas, I feel like there was the fallacy in your logic, and you can't use that as any type of one-to-one comparison. That seemed a little ridiculous to me, to compare the Sentinel Islands to the melting pot of America. Go ahead, Sister Tidewater, and then I believe it was Issa.
Issa first, then Tidewater.
Oh, it's Issa first? Okay.
Yeah, I just feel like if we're gonna have like this conversation and we're gonna like base like these ideas off of each other, if you're gonna say something isn't true, back it up with some facts. Like what this brother is over here doing, he's pulling out maps, he's giving you book references to just combat what he's saying to that's not true. That's very disingenuous. And it just feels like we're going around in circles when in the beginning of the conversation we was going in a forward movement. We actually went through the cradle of life, and now we're talking about the Americas, but now it's kind of circular because we're not speaking on facts anymore. Now we're more so speaking about how you feel about the information. And I say that because, you know, we just talked about the genetics of these people, and you know you can't combat him with the genetics of the people, which is, for me, is the most important thing. If you can't combat the DNA of the people that we're talking about in the conversation, why are we now talking about, you know, how could it be possible that these people? Well, it is possible because the DNA is telling us it's possible. So I know that, you know, everybody should be able to speak, but like, this is the fourth time we're going around in a circle about how this can be possible, knowing that the DNA is saying it. The DNA is what's making it possible. Now, if you have some other information, other DNA that you could combat that with, I'm more than happy to listen. But like, please keep your feelings out of it and just stick to the information. I'm done.
Yeah, before Tidewater goes, I just want to interject. It seems like almost every time the brother speaks, he misquotes me or mischaracterizes what I say because actually what I was saying was not based off of Ivan van Sertima, because I said we can leave Africa out of this, and I spoke heavily about the Melanesians and Australasians. And it seems like, right, there is an agenda to confine this conversation to America versus Africa, which is corny, which is blood and crip. If we're going to gangbang, let's just do it then, right? If not, let's be intellectually honest here, right? Let's try to cross compare and let's put aside our biases, because I feel like I was mischaracterized by saying my information was based off of Ivan van Sertima when I clearly said we can leave Africa out of this conversation. Let's take Africa out of this conversation. And I mentioned the Melanesians who island hopped from Australia to South America. I mentioned the Melanesians and Australasians who migrated across the Bering Strait. And when you talk about Australasians and Melanesians, they are 100% black. So all of the sources you would accept talk about the Australasians migrating across the Bering Strait into the Americas. Those Australasians are black. You yourself referenced the Aboriginal Australians who may have gotten lost on some journey. Well, if the Aboriginal Australians got lost and ended up in Australia, where were they going in the first place? Because it's implied that they had a destination. If they got lost going somewhere, where was their implied destination as well? And you can speculate on that with no reference, as you've been doing this entire time. So I want to land my plane and let Tidewater pick up, but I'm gonna land my plane by saying the mischaracterizing and accusing me of using Ivan Van Sertima's work. And you even said that I am just repeating black conscious, pro-black hood organization rhetoric. And I feel like that's what you are prepared to argue. That is the campaign you have been on before you came here. So when you heard the information I was giving, you went into an automated argument set for the average Hotepian hood dude, right? But that's not what this is over here. So pay attention to what's being said. Right? You're not battling someone who's just coming with Ivan Van Sertima rhetoric, who just listened to a couple YouTube videos. Go ahead, Tidewater.
Yeah, I'm not anti-African. I'm not none of that at all. The thing is, I don't do Native erasure, Native American erasure, or African American erasure for the source for one thing. I just don't believe that it was any black people in the Americas before Columbus. That's just my opinion.
Thank you. Who's next?
Can I go? And this is no disrespect to you, Tidewater, but like, that's just my opinion. It's a wild stance to take when there's evidence against your opinion. Like, it could be my
What
opinion.
evidence it is? Because I don't
Hold
believe
on, honey.
evidence.
Hold on, honey. I thought you landed. I could have the opinion that the sky is purple. I could feel that all day. Doesn't make it true though. So if you have haplogroups migrating, if you have these cultures coming together, if you have remnants of ancient people within the people here now, when you have this southern migration pattern just as much as the northern migration pattern, when you have Christopher Columbus coming here and describing the people that he saw as deeply melanated people, just to take the idea of that's just how I feel, I think that that's disingenuous to the conversation, right? Because like you would literally have to throw away all of that information just to stick to how you feel. And that's it. And that's no shade to you. That was respectfully said.
Well, respectfully, Christopher Columbus said he saw all of the colored people in straight hell that silk like a mane. He didn't see no black people. That he said in his diary.
So honestly, in his second diary, Columbus himself actually did say that he saw black peoples here, and actually all of the colonists, the Spaniards sailing with him, over 12 of them gave record that they saw black peoples in the Americas. They even cited how they saw a black Aboriginal American who was captive of the Mongoloid non-black Aboriginal Americans. I'm glad you've refreshed my memory on that, Tidewater, because your statement that Christopher Columbus never said he saw blacks here is very inaccurate, even though you made a great point by bringing that part up. Right? Columbus, in his second diary, in his second journal, when he came to the Americas, he actually, out of his own mouth, said through writing, he didn't say it out of his own mouth, he said it in writing, that they saw blacks here in the Americas. Christopher Columbus, out of his own mouth, actually said he saw blacks here. And there are 12 conquistador Spaniards with him that said the same thing. Go ahead, Jungle. if you raise your hand up or not.
No, I didn't raise mine, bro.
Oh, okay.
I was just saying that I said that I believe that they like I just showed you guys a little bit earlier when I shared my screen that they've said that they found evidence that that there was natives and Africans here before. Columbus
Yes.
made it here. Like I said, was it as a group as opposed to a group? I like a huge, large, abundant amount of people. I don't think so, but I do believe that there were people that used to sail and they used to come from here and there and from here and there, and there was some people that did come from Africa that that migrated not only to the west but to the east and to the north, and because that's really what history is. It's Africans that migrated out of Africa. So regardless, like, to what anyone's opinion is, I mean, there's evidence that suggests that there's been African artifact, or you could say even DNA, maybe a fossil or bone structure, whatever. But as opposed to a group, I can't say that I could see that in history, but I've heard 2 or 3 people that I've heard migrated from Africa, like Abur, one of the kings of Mali. They say historians believe he came from Africa and went to Brazil and then went back to Africa. Then again, like, I ain't trying to be biased, but there's not a lot of concrete evidence, but there is some evidence that does support that. It's not a lot, but there's still some. That's all I got to say.
All right, so I want to also reference David Reich. He was a Harvard medical professor of genetics, right? Associate member of the Broad Institute of Harvard, MIT, right? And a Howard Hughes medical investigator. He acted as senior author of a study published July 21st in Nature magazine, which shows that certain indigenous groups in northern Canada inherited DNA from at least 2 subsequent waves of migration. But in that paper, right, from another individual, Pontus Skoglund, first author of the paper, right, and a postdoctoral researcher in the Reich lab, Reich, who I just mentioned, was studying genetic data gathered as a part of a 2012 study when he noticed a strange similarity between 1 or 2 Native American groups in Brazil and indigenous groups in Australia, New Guinea, and the Andaman Islands. Now, we know the indigenous groups of Australia, New Guinea, and the Andaman Islands are Black people, specifically the Andamanese being some of the blackest people you will ever find walking the planet Earth. So they've done these genetic studies here showing Black peoples were in the Americas. When I say Black, I am not trying to sneak and say African. That's why I keep saying Australia. That's why I said we can leave Africa out of the conversation. I am perfectly fine leaving Africa out of the conversation because the indigenous ancestral Blackness that you modern Blacks try to link back to, that indigenous ancestral Blackness of the Americas comes via Australia and Melanesia. The original Black population of the Americas were Black via the Australasians and Melanesians. Then Mongoloids come and replace them. Just like Tidewater wants to acknowledge the Mongoloid population here. They did come here, but they came here as secondary migrants, competing with the original Black migrants of Australasia.
So shifting from list management to fact checking for a second, I wanted to add, let me address this carefully. This is again coming from not ChatGPT, but from look up a similar model. Let me address this carefully based on primary sources as documented history. In Columbus's logs and letters, there were few relevant mentions that should be understood in context. In his diary from his first voyage, as recorded by Bartolomé de las Casas, Columbus noted seeing people with various skin tones, but he did not specifically identify anyone as Black. In the way we understand the term today, he described indigenous peoples he encountered using Spanish terms for different shades of complexion. In his letters about the fourth voyage in 1503, Columbus mentioned encountering people in what is now Honduras who resemble blacks, Negroes in Spanish text. But this was a comparative description rather than a definitive categorization. It's important to note that many of Columbus's early writings were lost, and other things there are just fluff texts. So I just wanted to add that to the conversation.
Thank you for that addition, brother.
I think it was your turn, God.
So
Did you?
what I see going on here, right, is a similar conversation that happens about writing, right? So I want to pull up a few things real quick as visual references for my point here. So bear with me just one moment while I pull up some visual references. All right, so let's take a look here, right? When we talk about these maps, right, and the migrations of DNA, right, the scientific evidence, the tangible evidence, the quantifiable data that can be added up, right, measured, the genetic evidence, right? We see this migration out of Africa to the east, right? We see this migration out of Africa, right, into the Levant, into Turkey, into Europe, right? So we have references. All of the information is pointing to this African migration out of Africa and populating the world. And then you have naysayers that don't really provide an alternative, but just a statement of denial. And I feel like that is the same thing that happens. So just like you cannot go and find any genetically based model showing humans originating in America. You will never find a map like this showing that humans originated in America and then traveled all over you will never find a map like this, right? That says the haplogroup originated in America and then traveled, right? No one that pushes the American thing shows anything like this, right? They base it off of lookology. They base it off of outdated 18th century texts, right? And I feel like this is the same thing that happens when we talk about the origins of writing and cuneiform, right? Because what I have here is a chart. You see it says Kemetic hieroglyphs, and it starts with Kemetic hieroglyphs, goes to hieratic, demotic, proto-Sinaitic. The jungle that takes away from what I'm trying to present, brother. Could you just wait a minute and I will let you speak right after this? Because I'm trying to show something and then you doing that made my screen extremely small so no one can see what I'm doing. No doubt, brother. You could just go next. We go by a hand raised system. You know, you got next, brother. It goes to Proto-Sinaitic, right? South Arabian script, North Arabian script, Ge'ez, Phoenician, right? The Biblo-syllabary, Demotic, Meroitic, Aramaic, Coptic, Greek, Libico Berber, right? Gothic, Cyrillic, Old Italic, Syriac, Nabatean, Arabic, Yiddish, Old Turkic, Old Hungarian, traditional Mongolian Manchu, right? The Kemetic hieroglyphs and the lineage of the script invented by these Africans in Egypt, you get Hebrew, Phoenician, Greek, Latin, Cyrillic, Anglo-Saxon runes, the script we use today, our alphabet, Arabic, Old Turkic, Hungarian, traditional Mongolian Manchu. The writing scripts of the world descend from the Kemetic hieroglyphs. And then what do naysayers ridiculously say? Okay, cuneiform, but you can't find anything like this associated with cuneiform. You will never find a chart showing genetic ancestry and lineage in these scripts from starting from cuneiform to anything else. But you see from the Kemetic hieroglyphs, you get every script known to man. And I feel like this is similar when we talk about African migrations, African ancestry, and then you have naysayers that want to interject America. Well, show me a genetic haplogroup migration pattern that's backed by actual genetics that shows some ancestry and primacy of the Americas. Show me a genetic list of scripts that starts from cuneiform that leads to, you get Sumerian cuneiform, you get Assyrian cuneiform, you get Persian cuneiform, and then it dies out and that's it. So yes, cuneiform exists, but it cannot be used in any way to argue against or to be a naysayer against the Kemetic hieroglyphs and its legacy. Yes, the Americas exists. Yes, people came to the Americas, but it cannot be used in any way to speak against or naysay the fact and the genetic evidence of humans originating in Africa, then migrating out of Africa to populate the entire world. Just like the African script of the hieroglyphs started in Africa and then left Africa to populate the entire world. Who had their hand raised?
Jungle, I believe, wanted to present.
It was me.
Before you came up, I verbally said the brother Jungle can go after me, War Chief. So
okay.
I just want to go. Yeah, I gave him the verbal confirmation.
All right, look, I was going to show you something. By the way, the Egyptian language also goes to Proto-Bantu language system. So the Egyptian hieroglyphs are actually a branch of the Proto-Bantu language system too. Just so you know. Let me show you something else, by the way.
Yeah.
So
That's the same. Sumerian is a Niger Congo language script.
This is a black Moor. Okay, this is a black Moor who came to America. All right. So there was blacks that came here also, you feel me? Aside from Columbus, aside from the slave trade. All right. You guys could look this guy up. The same way, he's the only one named this. So you pop up that name, it's gonna come up. I just wanted you to see that. You know, there is conclusive evidence that there has been Africans here before. All right, he's not the only Moor that was here before. There's another Moor that I forgot his name, but it just hit me and I remember this one. But there was Moors that came here before. Okay, and the Bantu languages, it started the hieroglyphs, and the hieroglyphs is what created the Phoenician, and Phoenician is like the godfather of almost every language system now. Even the language systems that didn't have Phoenician now. So, mind you, the reason that I'm bringing that up is because Phoenician still comes from the hieroglyphs that still comes from Bantu. Look at where it all comes back to. I just wanted to, state those history facts, but go ahead. God energy. Or whoever's next.
Brother War Chief.
Yeah, I just didn't I forgot what I was about to say. I'm actually at the supermarket, so y'all can keep going. But y'all keep going.
And your
No doubt. So yeah, it's not just the Phoenician script that has origins in Africa, but the Semitic language in general has its origins in Africa. Right? Proto-Semitic was brought into the Levant with these Natufians migrating out of Africa. So not just the script used to write the language, the entire language family itself comes out of Africa. That's why Semitic falls into what language family, y'all? Afro-Asiatic. And what the evidence has shown is that it's called Afro-Asiatic because it has its origins in Africa, then becomes popular amongst Asiatics. Interestingly enough, right, besides Arabia, all Semitic languages are spoken inside Africa.
Mm-hmm. Did you
Right?
already go over the
So
Afroid, Mongoloid, and Afro-Mongoloid and no, it was Negroid,
Mongoloid,
Mongoloid.
Caucasoid.
Yeah.
And Caucasoid.
We've
So
mentioned the terms Negroid and Mongoloid.
Did you see what I shared the screen right now, God Energy? Or not?
Nah, share it again.
Look.
If you had something, oh yeah, with the brother from the 1500s.
Yeah, look. Who came here? Okay? Aside from Christopher, he was self-made, man. He was not a slave, he was a Moor. You know, the Moors were the Nubians and the Phoenicians and all of that fit into that context. He was a Moor. All right? Nobody talks about that. He's not the only Moor that came over here. He's not the only Moor that came here, bruh. There was another Moor. I forgot the other Moor's name. Yes. That was that. That's
So
why
look.
they say the Spaniards come from Moors. But the Spaniards do long hair. That's why they got brown eyes and brown hair and curly hair now. Because the Moors. But go ahead, y'all.
Peace, y'all. To be fair, right?
That's why 4,000 words. That's why 4,000 words in the Spanish language differentiate from Italy. 4,000 words in Spanish. We allow that everything's okay. That means in God's name everything's okay. We don't even know it comes from.
Your audio is cutting out, but I think you were trying to touch on the relation between Spanish and Arabic. Yes, you're right. Spanish.
Yeah, that is correct.
Spanish originates as Moorish Latin, right? Spanish has its origins in the Latin that was spoken by the Moors, right? And after the Spanish Inquisition, after the expulsion of the Moors, the Spaniards went through a process to de-Arabize their language. And Arabic was so integrated with their language. Arabic was at the origins of the Spanish language so much that even after their de-Arabization progress, 30% of Spanish to this day is still Arabic. So
Yeah,
he's
that's right.
100%.
Exactly. So what people don't get, what a lot of Spanish people don't know is that we get the Arabic, not from the Arabics, but from the Black Moors. We don't get Arabic from the straight Arabs. We get Arabic from the Moors, and the Sicilians is the ones who changed the Italians also, who also were the Moors. You feel me? But don't forget, the Moors are the ones who ruled the Iberian Peninsula. Okay, first. You feel me? So at the end of the day, a lot of these Spanish people, they don't even know that they are descendants of the Moors, and that's why they speak Arabic a little bit.
I don't. Yeah. Not all Moors spoke Arabic, but I don't want to get into all that.
But listen, the Moors, you're not understanding. It's Afro-Asiatic language family systems, bro. So they spoke Arabic and they were Arab Afro. They were Afro-Asiatic. If you look up what the Moors were.
The only reason that most Moors spoke Arabic was because of the Umayyad Caliphate under Saladin. He ruled during that time period. And most of the reason why the most of northern Africa, because of that, was because of the Umayyad Caliphate and how they swung the sword through most of Africa. So most so-called Moors, most of those people were never Arab. They were forced to speak that language.
No, because a lot of the Moors came from North African kings that mixed with women from the other side. They never came from slaves. That's why they never were slaves. All right, they came from North African kings. So they descended from North African kings with the lineage of Arabic women.
I'm just going to move the conversation forward because
all right.
I'm not going to get into all that. But
okay.
But yeah, but as far as like all the languages coming from Africa, like the script, that's true. But what about now? Here's the thing because I missed a few things because I had some business to handle. But did you touch on the Druids? Not the Druids. I'm sorry, not the Druids. The Vedas. Did you touch on the Vedas?
What about him? What
I
about him?
didn't specifically touch on the Vedas as far as the text, but I touched on the Dravidians, who was the, melanated Indians who were practicing the spiritual system behind the Vedas. But the Vedas are also, you know what I mean, at the time that they come up, even the Vedic script, we know this is associated also with the lighter skinned peoples of India who, their ancestry, they are the Aryan migrants, the Iranian migrants into the lands as well. But we did touch on the Dravidians and the indigenous black population of India.
Okay.
What's the list? Box 4.
It's on agnostic, you, and then tied with a.
So before 20 years actually before the Moors landed in America, Juan Garrido, who was an African who guided the Spaniard, was in Africa and in America. And then 20 years later, there was a Moor that actually came. So the Moors weren't here before. And it's said that Juan Garrido, he took that name from the Spaniards. He was a convert. But they have a theory. They think he was the son of a king,
I
an
believe that's why I
African
was.
king.
Yeah, I believe I heard of that too. That's why I was saying I heard about somebody else too who had came before, and it was like a Latin, like a Latin name like that, but I wasn't
Yeah,
certain.
he was a convert.
And I
And Professor
I assumed
Henry
he was a
Louis
Moor.
Gates. Yeah, Professor Henry Louis Gates speaks on him. Yeah, Juan Garrido, a free black African, joined Spanish explorers in present-day Florida in 1513. He later helped Cortez take Mexico before moving on to California in search of gold. 20 years later, a black explorer known as Esteban the Moor struggled to cross Texas desert. He was just one of 4 survivors of Spanish expedition that went horribly wrong, etc., etc. Those are my 2 cents.
Thank you for that citation. Both War Chief and Jungle were correct. And I love to bring out how the Moors are part of the original Umayyad expansion, the original Islamic expansion. You know how Rome had 2 halves? They had the western half, which was Roman, and they had the eastern half, which became known as Byzantium. That's similar to what happened in Islam, to where once Islam spread across North Africa, spread into Spain, the western half became known as the Moors, and the eastern half was still acknowledged as the Umayyad, just like War Chief was saying. Just like the brother War Chief was saying. But Jungle was completely correct as well, in that expansion, African kings and civilizations were swept up in that, converted to Islam, moved into Spain, and blase. So these African kings that converted, that Jungle we're talking about, joined up with the Umayyad that War Chief is talking about. So both of these brothers had the 2 pieces to the puzzle, thinking that they don't fit together when they actually, coincide completely.
I understand what he was saying. I
get
knew
that.
what But I don't think he was understanding what. I don't think he was acknowledging that what I was saying was coinciding with what he was saying, and that's why I'm trying to tell people like people forget how
I didn't
powerful.
finish. Hold on, brother Jungle. I didn't land
Go
my
ahead,
plane
dog.
yet. No
Go
doubt,
ahead.
no doubt, brother. No doubt. So that's the beauty of this that I wanted to acknowledge. But what I want to add to the conversation is the term Moor and who it would have been applied to, because we talk about the historical Moors, which are associated to this Islamic period, right? But that term Moor stems from the Greek moros, the Latin mores, right? And we have records of the Latins calling people's Moris, right? Mauritania, calling these peoples in reference to their dark skin. So the Latins were calling melanated populations this before the time of the historical Moors. So this term Moor had been associated with dark-skinned populations for hundreds of years before Islam came on the scene. So the term Moor is not exclusive to Islamic black people, but it is more of an ethnic term, right? So I want to highlight that at the time of the Moors, these Muslim Moors moving into Spain and Arabia were not the only peoples called Moors, and they were not the only black population in Europe. There had been an indigenous population in Europe stemming from the times that I had expressed with the Arygnasian, the movement of the E haplogroup into Europe, talked about the Arygnasian culture and even the Levantine Arygnasian culture. Right?
Yep.
So there and right, just like 100% Grand was saying, that black population was there and it persisted through time immemorial to be seen, just like he was implying should be the case with Africans coming to the Americas. That's exactly what we see with the indigenous ancestral black population of Europe. So at the time of the historical Moors that are popularized as Muslims, there had already been a black indigenous population there the whole time that would have been coexisting with the Islamic Moors. And to give you a visual reference, I'm going to show you more primary evidence.
Abu Bukhari.
Right? Not just Abu Bukhari, but even though I mentioned him too, brother, War Chief, you right, bro, you should have been here the whole time, bro. But when we look at this painting right here, right, and we can see this is out of a chronicle. You see the writing above this painting, the authentic writing above this painting. This is primary evidence we are dealing with here, right? You see the Islamic, right, the Semitic culture Moors, the tunics that they're wearing, the head wraps that they have. These would represent the historical Moors that we're used to, right? Those practicing Islam, those associated with Arabian Islamic expansion. We see them cutting the heads off of these Europeans here. They're fighting for their people, something I wish we would do in this modern time, especially when we need it the most. They're doing it and they're not even oppressed. We can't do it and we get murdered every day. So we need to learn something from these images. We need to learn something from our great ancestors, right? But this would represent the Islamic population of Moors that we're used to seeing, right? Those associated with the Umayyads, those associated with Islam. But this, right, would represent the black indigenous European population that had persisted there, right? This black indigenous European population that contributed to why Hercules himself was depicted as a black man. We do not know that Hercules was a black man. We didn't know that because Disney Channel casted a blonde-haired, blue-eyed guy. Because when the Disney movie came out, he was blonde hair and blue-eyed. But we did not know that Hercules was black. We did not know that Europe had an indigenous black population. So you see the difference. Look at the chainmail. Look at the identical, right? The identical armor that they wear, the tunics, the chainmail.
Back to
Even the
Urban
style.
Asian
One thing that I
Music.
want to,
Hold on real
the one
quick.
thing,
Hold on real quick. I'm going to land my plane with this. So we have to look at the queen. Look at the. Well, let's not even skip over this. Hold on, real quick. Let's not even skip over the
Get that
fact
person up out of here.
that the Black Queen is leading her troops into battle, right? Flying the flag of the Black King, defying the flag of the Black man, right? Her rulership, her competence on the field of battle, right? Let's not leave that out.
Reminds me of chess. Kind of reminds me of how chess is played.
Reminiscent of Queen Amanirenas, right, who led her troops in the battle against the Romans. But I want to juxtapose here, right, the Islamic Moorish invader population. Pardon me for calling them invaders. We might love them too much to call them that. I'm just saying that to show that they were
historically, that's what they did to Spain.
Really quickly, before y'all continue, can you set an admin, because we got noise and I want to make sure the audio picks up everything that you're saying.
That's right. Okay.
Box 2, that was the warning for you. You're loud. I need you to mute or you're going to get kicked as soon as the admin is set.
Get him up out of
Take
here.
an admin if you got an extra.
Get him up out of here, man.
Thank you. Box 2, go.
So I feel like it is imperative. I'm gonna land my plane with this, family. I feel like it is imperative that when we talk about the Black populations of Europe, when we talk about the Moors, right, it is imperative for us to acknowledge that yes, there was an invading Islamic Black population whom we call the historical Moors, but in Europe for thousands of years, there had also been an indigenous Black population whom also would have been called Moors for thousands of years before the Black Muslim guys ever even showed up, right? And we can reference David McRitchie's Ancient and Modern Britons as a nice introductory source on this topic. So when we talk about the Moors, we are not just talking about Muslims, but we are also talking about indigenous Black Europeans who had been there for thousands of years. I yield.
And that's the reason why I said exactly what I said, Angie. That's the exact reason of why I said that. And no Moor called themselves Moor. They either call themselves by their tribe or their caliphate. So most of the Moors that we talk about, I hate that word Moor because it's like, okay, you said the Moors did this, right? All you're saying is that some melanated people conquered some shit. But who are these people? What were their names? Where did they come from? What area during that time? Was it Europe? Was it Mali? Was it Morocco? Where did they come from? We got to be specific when we talk about Moors, because Moors, the word Moor was just a blanket name to name any melanated person during that time. So that's why I kind of get irritated when I hear Moor, because it's like, okay, which one? Where did it come from? What time period? Who are we talking about? So that's why I'm like, Moor, okay, cool. But who were the Moors that were doing it? Like, for instance, when Christopher Columbus came over here and they keep on saying that he founded the Americas, which he didn't, which we should all know that, right? What was the Moor? Who was the Moor that actually showed him the way? How did he know how to get there? These are the questions that we need to be asking.
Exactly.
You know what I'm saying?
I thought about that shit too. That's funny.
Yes.
It's funny you said that. Can I show you guys something though real quick? Let me share the screen real quick. This is important for people to know because people get the perception of the Romans were people that were a mixed ethnicity with North African until they created their own race. That's why they get a Mediterranean tan. That's why they don't get burnt up in the sun. Look, I'm gonna show you something though. Hold up. Some of the most important Romans, including authors, popes, because that's where they get the religions from, the Moors, or whatever you want to call them, even emperor, were originally North African. The most famous Roman of North Africa origin was undoubtedly Emperor Septimus Severus. So Septimus was an African Roman emperor. Okay, this was an African Roman emperor. He was born in Leptis Magnus, modern day Libya, and the dynamic 18th year reign in the 2nd century after death of Jesus Christ. But yeah, and he's just one of many Moors that were Roman kings.
And his son Carcalla is acknowledged as being, you know what I mean? Because naturally they're gonna acknowledge the man's son. So when they talk about Black Romans and Black Septimius Severus, but they also mentioned his son Carcalla as well. And I believe Hadrian, Emperor Hadrian, who built Hadrian's Wall, had North African ancestry. And then to not even get into like that era, even before the Roman era, when we're talking about Black indigenous Europeans, let's talk about the Greeks as well. Because when I showed the E haplogroup, and I'm talking about the Natufians entering in the Levant and showing the E haplogroup chart, it clearly showed that those North Africans of the E haplogroup also entered Greece, right? And let's see these early depictions here, right? This is from a tomb painting in Egypt, in Kemet, right?
And they look red too. They look kind of red too.
Depicting the Greeks, right? Bringing tribute here. And this was the color that the Egyptians used to denote melanated Black people, right? Because as we know in our community, we got red bones, we got yellow bones, and then we got the great Black Assar melanated chocolate variety, right? So our peoples were always depicted with the red bones and our jet black melanated Assar brothers and sisters. So the Egyptians right here are depicting the E haplogroup melanated early inhabitants of Greece bringing tribute, right? This is another depiction of a Minoan, another depiction here of a Minoan. And we know that they have cream colored European, Indo-European white people paint, because we see these lighter shades in here. So they didn't paint him this brown color out of default.
Right.
I would like to also, this is also Minoan. This is a Minoan fresco. And I would like to point out not only the red bone person here, right, analogous to this picture that I showed, we have the great Black Assar, extremely 9 ether melanated variety right here as well. So this is relevant to point out, right? But one would go, well, God Energy, if these guys were so melanated like you say, what happened? They made the mistake we always make, time and time and time again. They made the mistake we always make, time and time again. I will rest and yield here.
I'm guessing y'all are in that settle. So
Go ahead.
Oh no, if you had something to say, I was just filling in the gap. Go ahead, brother.
Nah, I just really wish that that when we go into these, I feel like they use this word more to hide a lot of things. You know what I'm saying? Because like when you just use that term, you really can't put a finger on what actually happened and who did what. I would really like Like the whole I don't know if you told the story about how they burned the boats going into Spain or whatever. But nobody goes into the person that actually burned them boats and said, we're not coming back until we take Spain. Nobody says, okay, this person is such and such. Nobody goes into that person. They always try to hide stuff. And I feel like they use that term more to hide things from us. I wonder how we can actually go in and actually take a look at some of these things, these historical things that happen, so that way we can, put a finger on what's going on.
Yeah, I respect that. I understand that, and that's why there have been attempts made to kind of identify certain things. I know we like to try to go in and make the distinction between the Almohads and Almoravids, who were specific groups that were associated with the Moors. You know what I mean? So, War Chief, with respect to what you just said, that is why people like to highlight like the Almoravids and Almohads, right, and their involvement in that story for that exact reason, because some people that are associated with Moors were beneficial to the larger Black community, and some individuals that are associated with the Moors were detrimental to the Black community. And I feel like for that reason as well, it is important to identify these different groups who just had the blanket term Moor slapped on them, right? I'm going to switch gears real quick a little bit because I forgot I had these. But earlier when I was talking about the migrations of Black peoples out of Africa into these other areas, and I showed the hot spot for haplogroup explosions. And I also showed the correlation between these clusters of Neanderthal admixture, right? And then I said, because of this, the offspring of these individuals, right, carried genetics that allowed for them to have these degeneracies and mutations in their genes to produce albinos in mass, right? This is how you get non-Black populations who sprang forth from Black populations, right? And this is the example I wanted to show here of this one mother with a bunch of albino children, but I don't want to get a violation. But you see this
You might need to
melanated
cut it
dude
off
here?
though.
You see this melanated dude here and this melanated sister here? Well, these aren't our brothers and sisters, but they cousins, right? Because they got Neanderthal admixture. And because of that
That's where
Neanderthal
we get that
admixture, because of their Neanderthal admixture, they produce albinos in mass, right? So this is how you can get a population of Black people who would then produce albinos in mass, enough so for the albino genetics to solidify like a new strain of Zaza to become who we call Indo-Europeans carrying the R haplogroup.
So I got a quick question. What about the children from the Solomon Islands?
We mentioned we mentioned them as well. Are you talking about the ones that are blonde?
Yeah, the ones that are blonde, because I had a foreign exchange student that went to our school, bro. And
I
she
mentioned
told
them
us
as well.
that her hair was natural. We never believed her. We never believed her. He was like, you lying. Then she had pictures of when she was a baby. We was like, oh, okay. So we never knew. We were so ignorant to the fact that melanated people could have that type of eye color and that type of hair texture and color.
I don't know why, because all albinisms, there's 7 albinisms. And there's if you think about it, you see an albino kid of all colors. You see an albino kid with orange hair, yellow hair, brown hair, black hair, green eyes, blue eyes, black eyes, brown eyes. Some of them browner, some of them light, some of them in between. You get them all types. You got some of them with less nappy hair. The albinos come out all types of ways. And that's the only race in the world that could create another genetic, like a completely different from itself. Like a white man can't have a black baby, or 2 white people can't have a baby with a fro, or baby with orange hair, yellow hair, blonde hair, like all, unless they're mixed with that. But blacks, that happens in black communities all over the place.
So that just proves that this is genetic manipulation.
Yeah, it is. It's genetic manipulation, but the thing is that you got to understand the black gene is the black gene is such an adaptive gene that wherever the black race, the genotype of a black male goes, his body will adapt to that environment and create its new gene. That's why if you look up the most genetic diversity in the world is in Africa. Nah, I can't. We can't hear you, God Energy.
Man, I hope they didn't get him.
So he was. I don't think he was doing shit wrong.
See, when you show pictures and stuff like that, they're not playing, man. Damn.
And this
Think
is the
they got him.
second one too. This is the second time to happen. Hearts in the comments, y'all. If it helps, get them back.
Well, I'll go live. God Energy. I'll go live, bro. Oh
He came
man.
back last time. If they are not letting you back, it took a little second last time.
I don't think that they're gonna. No. I think he'll be able to come back up.
Let us know what they say in the comments if you can.
That's what I'm saying. That's why we need our own platform where we can do what we want. or God Energy need to at least like if God Energy just put it in a Discord and we can all view it from our phones. Like, hey, I need everybody to go to the Discord. Check this
And you
out.
want to
I'll post this.
know how you know the most racist be the Middle Easterns? Because if you ever look when they block you, when they ban your shit, if you look at the ID number that banned you, it's always a Middle Eastern dude's profile, like whoever's working for the app.
Man, but
If
these
you, I don't know
Asians
if you
be
guys,
doing it too.
yeah, I don't know
This
what's
whole
wrong with
entire
those
app
people.
hates us. That's why I refuse to put my card in here anymore. Like, I'm done.
Oh, if you think that this is bad, TikTok's worse.
It's the app. It's the app. TikTok is no different. They all the
I
same.
hate
They
TikTok.
don't like us.
I hate
Yeah, we just
TikTok. Like,
we gotta finesse. We gotta kind of finesse it. We gotta kind of
I
finesse
had
it.
somebody talking about.
As long as we don't show them. That's why I said like the whole Discord thing. Like if somebody had a Discord that we were all on, and it'd be like, look, so I want y'all to go check out the Discord. Let me know when y'all see it. Boom, I posted the picture, video, whatever you're trying to show us in the Discord. I want y'all to look at that. You know what I'm saying?
Right. And it's fucked up because
They had a whole trafficking shit going on, man. So that's why they don't want no pictures of kids. If you show any kids, I think my founder of my family, Troller, he got banned for showing his son.
I've never showed
Um,
any children and I was getting banned left and right. And I've had multiple profile pages. Like, it's not even
oh
that.
yeah, what your colleague got banned? What's his name? Native. Native used to get banned for showing him his crops, like just fruits and vegetables.
See? And I just be
Mhm.
speaking on history and politics. I got literally
And
the
there's
first time I got banned for 30 years. Like, what?
30 years is crazy. Man,
Yeah,
man, don't we got
wild.
somebody that know how to make this app like this, man? That can copy this app?
hey, You be one crazy motherfucker to come back 30 years later talking about, yeah, they finally unbanned my shit.
You'll be old. I'm back,
Talking
nigga.
about, oh, you still on the app? Yeah, been 30 years. I've been banned the whole thing.
Nah, Troll is not banned. He's still here. He was banned. They banned him, but he's back. There's ways to appeal. So, because it goes off of an algorithm, and it goes off of they got AI basically doing this shit too.
Oh, now
I
check
remember
this
I
out.
showed Mexican oregano, and they banned me because I
Oh,
was
'cause it
doing my cooking
It looked like
thing on
herb.
here.
That's why. Mm-hmm. Because it looks
No,
like
it was in a
weed.
jar, like a small little jar, like
I know,
you
but
know,
that's
like
what
that
I
you get
had
from the
weed in.
store.
I had my weed in a jar, and they banned me for a year on my other account. So I was like, damn, bruh. So that's how I know that's why they did that to you, because they banned me for a whole year because I had my weed. I was breaking it up. I took it out the little mini jar. I have the mini jar in front of me right now, and fucking, I don't even want to show that shit just in case. And that shit, fucking, they said 1 year illegal drugs. I said, what the fuck? You got people
Yeah,
over
but
here, nigga, popping pussy and shit,